is hereby called to order. We shall be led in prayer by Senator Cynthia Villar.
The month of May is traditionally devoted by Catholics to Mary, to whom Pope Francis has entrusted the whole world amidst the ongoing pandemic. Pope Francis has also wrote 2 prayers for an end to coronavirus, and this is one of them. It says, "We fly to your protection, O Holy Mother of God, in the present tragic situation when the whole world is prey to suffering and anxiety. We fly to you, Mother of God and our Mother, and seek refuge under your protection. Virgin Mary, turn your merciful eyes towards us amid this coronavirus pandemic. Comfort those who are distraught and mourn their loved ones who have died, and at times are buried in a way that grieves them deeply. Be close to those who are concerned for their loved ones who are sick and who, in order to prevent the spread of the disease, cannot be close to them. Fill with hope those who are troubled by the uncertainty of the future and the consequences for the economy and employment. Mother of God and our Mother, pray for us to God, the Father of mercy, that this great suffering may end, and that hope and peace may draw anew. Plead with your divine Son, as you did at Cana, so that the families of the sick and the victims be comforted, and their hearts be opened to confidence and trust. Protect those doctors, nurses, health workers, and volunteers who are on the front line of this emergency and are risking their lives to save others. Support their heroic efforts and grant them strength, generosity, and continued help. Be close to those who assist the sick night and day, and to priests who, in their pastoral concern and fidelity to the gospel, are trying to help and support everyone. Blessed Virgin, illuminate the minds of men and women engaged in scientific research, that they may find effective solutions to overcome this virus. Support national leaders with with wisdom, solicitude, and generosity, they may come to the aid of those lacking the basic necessities of life and may devise social and economic solutions inspired by farsightedness and solidarity. Mary Most Holy, steer our consciences so that the enormous funds invested in developing and stockpiling arms will instead be spent on promoting effective research on how to prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. Beloved Mother, help us realize that we are all members of one great family and to recognize the bond that unites us so that in a spirit of fraternity and solidarity, we can help to alleviate countless situations of poverty and need. Make us strong in faith, persevering in service, constant in prayer. Mary, consolation of the afflicted, embrace all your children in distress and pray that God will stretch out his all-powerful hand and free us from this terrible pandemic so that life can serenely resume in its normal course. To you who shine our journey as a sign of salvation and hope, do we entrust ourselves. O loving, O sweet Virgin Mary. Amen.
Thank you. The Secretary will please call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators. Angara.
Present.
Dinay.
Walang national anthem.
Cayetano.
Yes.
De Lima. De La Rosa.
Present. Present. Present.
Gatchalian,
Here.
Go,
Go, see.
Gordon,
Yeah.
Ontiveros,
Present.
Lacson, Lapid,
Present.
Marcos, Kiao,
Present.
Pangilinan,
Present.
Pimentel,
I'm here.
O,
Present.
Recto,
Yes.
Revilla,
Present.
Tolentino, Villanueva,
Present.
Ilyar,
Present.
Zubiri,
Present.
Senate President Soto III.
With 4 senators physically present, 19 virtually present, 23, total of 23 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader,
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journals of the 64th session, May 11, 12, and 13, 2020, and the 65th session, May 18, 19, and 20, 2020, and consider them as approved. I so move.
any objection? Chair hears none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Secretary will proceed with the reference of business.
Reference of business, bills on first reading. Senate number 1536, an act amending section 2 of Act number 3326, otherwise known as an act to establish periods of prescription for violations penalized by special acts and municipal ordinances, and to provide when prescriptions shall begin to run, introduced by Senator De Lima.
Referred to Committee on Justice and Human Rights.
Senate number 1537, an act amending Section 11 of Republic Act number 3019, otherwise known as the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act as amended, introduced by Senator De Lima.
Referred to the Committee on Justice and Human Rights.
Senate number 1538, an act providing for a moratorium on student loan payment during disasters and other emergencies, introduced by Senator Lapid.
Referred to Committee on Higher Education.
Senate number 1539, an act mandating the language accessibility of disaster-related information, introduced by Senator Lapid.
To the Committee on Public Information, Mass Media.
Senate number 1540, an act providing for a mechanism for the prevention of shortages of drugs, medical devices, and other medical supplies essential to respond to epidemics and public health emergencies, amending for that purpose Republic Act number 11332, otherwise known as Mandatory Reporting of Notifiable Diseases and Health Events of Public Health Concern Act, introduced by Senator Lapid.
Referred to Committee on Health.
Resolutions. PS Resolution number 411, resolution urging the Department of Public Works and Highways in coordination with the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority to designate, develop, and improve bicycle lanes in Metro Manila for the duration of the community quarantine, introduced by Senator Tolentino.
To the Committees on Sustainable Development, Goals and Innovation, and Public Works.
PS Resolution number 412, resolution directing the Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation to assess the preparations of the Commission on Elections (COMELEC) for the 2022 national and local elections amidst coronavirus disease COVID-19 pandemic in the country, introduced by Senator Angara.
Referred to the Committee on Electoral Reforms.
PS Resolution number 413, resolution urging the Committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation, and Futures Thinking to conduct a hearing in aid of legislation on the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the future of the educational system of the country and its impact on SDG 4 concerning quality education in light of the new normal and mapping new and responsive ways and systems of learning in the current pandemic and for future health emergencies, introduced by Senator Cayetano.
To the Committees on Sustainable Development, Goals, Innovation, and Futures Thinking, and Basic Education.
PS Resolution Number 414, resolution directing the appropriate Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the status of the country's internet connectivity, speed, bandwidth, capacity, and other relevant parameters, considering the increase of work-from-home arrangements, online classes, and learning systems, and the shift of economic activities to digital platforms in light of the new normal caused by the COVID-19 pandemic introduced by Senator Lapid.
To the Committees on Science and Technology and Public Services.
PS Resolution Number 415, resolution directing the Senate Committee on Higher Technical and Vocational Education to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation with the intent of determining the feasibility of creating an online educational delivery platform to be managed by the Commission on Higher Education, CHED, that will be accessible to all tertiary education institutions, teachers, and college students, introduced by Senator Lapid.
To the Committee on Higher Education.
PS Resolution Number 416, resolution directing the Senate Committees on Basic Education, Arts and Culture, and Higher Technical and Vocational Education to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation to determine the feasibility of mandating telecommunications companies to provide free internet access to online learning portals, educational websites, and similar digital platforms for the benefit of all students and teachers during times of disaster and emergency when physical classes cannot be conducted, introduced by Senator Lapid.
To the Committees on Basic Education and Higher Education.
PS Resolution Number 417, resolution directing the Committee on Labor, Employment, and Human Resources Development to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the adequateness and sufficiency of the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration's assistance to overseas Filipino workers affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, introduced by Senator Drilon.
To the Committee on Labor.
Committee Report Number 87, prepared and submitted by the Committee on Basic Education, Arts and Culture on Senate Number 1541, with Senator Soto III, Villanueva, Tolentino, and Gatchalian as authors thereof, entitled An Act Amending Section 3 of Republic Act Number 7797, otherwise known as an act to lengthen the school calendar from 200 days to not more than 220 class days. Approval and substitution of Senate Numbers 1438, 1452, and 1457. Sponsor, Senator Gatchalian.
To the calendar for ordinary business. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, just some housekeeping measures. Upon conferring with the concerned chairperson, Senator Grace Poe and Senator Pia Cayetano, I move that we change the referral of Senate Bill number 588, an act to promote the use of bicycles as an alternative mode of transportation, from the Committee on Public Services to the Committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation, Futures Thinking as the primary committee. The said bill is secondarily referred to the Committee on Public Works and Committee on Finance. We transferred several bills of this nature, Mr. President, last week, and this bill was left out. So I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, so transferred.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to resume consideration of Senate Bill number 1318. This is the Organic Agriculture Act. I so move. Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration is in order.
We are in the period of amendments, Mr. President. May we recognize the distinguished chairperson of the Committee on Agriculture, Senator Cynthia Villar, for further amendments to the measures.
Parliamentary status is still in the period of amendment. Senator Cynthia Villar is recognized.
Mr. President, number 1, on page 2, line 23, section 3, the definition of terms, we propose to insert an amendment regarding the definition of organic production system in Republic Act number 10068, the Organic Agriculture Act, to correct typographical errors therein by replacing the word solid with soil. It shall read as follows. C. Organic production system is a system of designed to, and number 1, enhance biological diversity within the whole system. Number 2, increase soil biological activity. And number 3, maintain long-term soil fertility. Move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 2, lines 24 to 30, revise item H, which is the definition of certification, and replace with the following definition. H, certification is the procedure by which an organic certifying body, or OCB, provides written or equivalent assurance that farms or production and processing systems conform to the organic standard as mandated in this act. Move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 3, line 6, item 0, on the definition of inspection and certification, we propose to delete the words "and certification" to limit the definition to inspection, as certification is already defined in item H. We now propose a new definition of inspection, which shall read as follows. Letter O, inspection is the examination of farms, food, and non-food products, food control system, raw materials, processing, distribution, and retailing, including in-process and finished product testing, in order to verify that they conform to the requirements for being organic. Inspection includes the examination of the production and processing systems. I move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Starting on page 3, line 19, up to page 4, line 2, delete the second, third, and fourth paragraphs of item Q on the definition of an organic certifying body. And on line 18, after the phrase certification activities, add the following sentence. It is responsible for verifying that a product sold or labeled as organic is produced, processed, prepared, handled according to relevant guidelines. The definition of organic certifying body as amended will now read as follows. Letter O, organic certifying body refers to a legal entity accredited by a government agency to perform inspection and certification activities. It is responsible for verifying that a product sold or labeled as organic is produced, processed, prepared, handled according to relevant guidelines. I move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 6, line 29, between the words national and PGS, insert the phrase association of, and between the word PGS and the comma, insert the word groups. The PGS cannot be represented because it is a system. It is the national group of PGS that can be represented. Said amended paragraph J will now read as follows. J, one representative from the National Association of PGS groups to be chosen from among and by themselves, provided that the representative is a small farmer, semicolon, and move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 7A, line 30, after the word "the," delete the phrase members of the. The sentence shall now read as follows. The NOAB shall meet at least once every quarter after its constitution. I move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 8, line 2, we propose to transfer the entire section 7 of the bill found in page 9, lines 1 to 12, in this line 2, with the following amendment. Letter A, change section 7 to section 6. Letter B, the number 11 in the phrase, a new section 11 is hereby inserted, be changed to 10. Letter C, after the phrase functional office, insert the phrase to be known as the National Organic Agriculture Program, National Program Coordinating Office, or colon, NOWAP-NPCO. And letter D, delete the remainder of the sentence which reads, National Program Coordinating Office of the National Organic Agriculture Program, and replace it with to serve as the Planning and Administrative Secretariat of the NOAB and as coordinating office of the program. The new Section 6 of the bill will now read as follows. Section 6, Section 11 of Republic Act number 10068 is hereby repealed and a new Section 10 is hereby inserted to read as follows. Section 10, National Organic Agriculture Program, National Program or Coordinating Office to manage the effective implementation of the National Organic Agriculture Program, comma, the DA Office of the Secretary shall be strengthened and empowered in terms of establishing a functional office to be known as the National Organic Agriculture Program dash National Program Coordinating Office, or what you call NOAP dash NPCO, to serve as the Planning and Administrative Secretariat of the NOAB and as the coordinating office of the program. I move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
In Section 12 of RA 1006A68 Work Plan, the functions enumerated in that section would no longer belong to BAFS, but to the newly established NOAC, or National Program Coordinating Office. It is therefore prudent for those mandates to be assigned through legislation to the NOAP-MPCO. Section 12 should now follow the new Section 10 of RA 10068. Thus, we propose on page 8, line 2, after the newly inserted Section 6, we propose that a new Section 7 be inserted that would make Section 12 of RA 1068 as the new Section 11 with amendment. Section 7 will now read as follows. Section 7, Section 12 of RA number 10068 is hereby renumbered as Section 11 of the Act and amended, which shall read as follows. Section 1211 Work Plan, in line with the National Organic Agriculture Program, the NOAP-NPCO shall submit to the board for approval the following. Move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Move, still on page 8, line 6 to 30, in view of the changes that have been made regarding the NOAP-NPCO and the section on work plan, we propose that Section 6 of the bill be revised to read as follows. Section 8, Section 10, and 11 of Republic Act number 10068 are hereby repealed and a new Section 12 is hereby inserted to read as follows. Section 12, Bureau of Agriculture and Fisheries Standard of BAPS. The BAPS of the Department of Agriculture shall be restructured, strengthened, and empowered to support the objectives of this Act. It shall provide technical assistance to the NOAB and the NOAP-MPCO. The BAPS, in addition to its existing functions and responsibility, shall perform the following function, duties, and responsibility for purposes of this Act. Number 1, formulate and update standards relevant to organic agriculture. Number 2, issue accreditation to organic certifying bodies. Number 3, conduct inspection on compliance of PGS Group with Philippine National Standard on Organic Agriculture and publish at least once a year the list of compliant PGS Group. Number 4, issue registration of organic inputs such as organic soil, amendments, and organic biocontrol agents. Number 5, rule on the appeal of farm owner on decisions made by organic certifying bodies on inspection and certification issues. And number 6, perform such other functions, duties, and responsibilities as may be necessary to implement this act. I move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Number 10 on page 9, line 13, insert a new section 9 that will make section 15 of RA 10068 as its new section 13 to read as follows. Section 9, section 15 of RA number 10068 is hereby renumbered as section 13 of the Act and amended to read as follows. Section 15 Section 13, accreditation of organic certifying body. The BOPS is hereby designated and authorized to grant official accreditation to an organic certifying body or entity. The BOPS is tasked to formulate the necessary rules and procedures in the accreditation of organic certifying bodies, performing, including third-party certification or granting certification as part of the participatory guarantee system, provided that there shall be at least one accredited organic certifying body performing third-party certification, each in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, or in case of only one organic certifying body performing third-party certification is accredited. It shall have at least one satellite office or processing unit, each in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. I move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Chair hears none, adopted.
Number 11, after introducing the participatory guarantee system in the new section 13 to clarify the roles of BOPS in certifying core PGS group and accrediting organic certification bodies, we now propose to renumber section 8 of SBN 1318 as the new section 10. We also would like to make some refinements on the concept and implementation of the participatory guarantee system as applied in the Philippines. We propose that Section 6 of SBN 1318 to read as follows. Section 10. A new Section 14 is hereby inserted after the new Section 13 of Republic Act number 10068 to read as follows. Section 14. Participatory Guarantee System. Letter A. Basic principles. The PGS shall be the mechanism by which small farmers and fisher folk, their farms and association, cooperative, shall be certified as engaged in organic agriculture and as producers of organic agriculture products. The participatory organic certification from organic certifying bodies organized in accordance with this act shall be promoted and accepted. The product certified through PGS shall be traded only in the domestic market unless covered by an international certification or a mutual recognition agreement. An association of group under the PGS shall adhere to the Philippine National Standards for Organic Agriculture. Further, association of groups under the PGS shall adopt the following features and characteristics. Number 1, existence of organic agriculture norms conceived by the organic agriculture stakeholders, norms that are appropriate to smallholder agriculture. Grassroots organization. The participatory certification should be perceived as a result of a social dynamic based on the active participation of all stakeholders. Number 3, existence of principles and values that enhance the livelihood and well-being of farming families and promote organic agriculture. And number 4, documented management systems and procedures. Number 5, provision of mechanism to verify farmers' compliance to established norms. Number 6, provision of mechanism for supporting farmers to produce organic products and be certified as organic farmers, which shall include field advisors, newsletters, farm visits, websites, among others. Number 7, existence of a bottom line document, such as a farmer's pledge, that shall state his or her agreement to the established norms. Number 8, introduction or use of seals and labels providing evidence of organic status. And number 9, existence of a clear and previously defined set of recommendations and measures against farmers who fail to comply with standards. Letter B, legal personality. The core PGS group shall be registered with the municipality where the PGS group of which it is a part of is predominantly located. It shall secure a mayor's permit from said municipality or city, possession of which shall suffice as proof of registration and the grant of legal personality limited to BGS transactions. A national organization of local government units actually engaged in organic agriculture shall also secure a legal personality for purposes of accreditation by BOPS. Any other organic certifying body shall secure a mayor's permit from the municipality or city where it intends to operate, and possession of which shall suffice to grant them legal personality for purposes of accreditation by BOPS. And letter C, certification. The BOPS shall provide the guidelines for the certification of farms pursuant to the provision of this act. A farm or farm owner applying for certification as an organic agriculture practitioner shall join a PGS group in the same municipality city where it or he is located, or with a PGS group in an adjacent municipality or city within the same province, provided that the farm is contiguous to the farms of the PGS group in the adjacent municipality or city. The farm or farm owner shall apply for a participatory organic certificate with a core PGS group of the PGS group where it belongs, or with a national organization of local government units initiating organic agriculture practices, a member of which is the municipality or city where the PGS group is located, or with any private group or organization actually engaged in organic agriculture and operating in that municipality city, any of which is accredited as an organic certifying body. The decision of any of the above mentioned OCBS shall be appealable to the BOPS, provided that the BOPS shall rule on the appeal within 30 days from its receipt. Otherwise, the appeal decision shall be considered reversed. The withdrawal of membership in the PGS group shall mean forfeiture of the privilege for the farm or farm owner to use the participatory guarantee organic certificate. In case a member of the core PGS group representing a farm applies for renewal of certification with the same core PGS group, the member of the core PGS group must inhibit himself before the application for renewal can be considered. And letter D, accreditation. The BOP shall provide the guidelines for accreditation. A registered core PGS group shall apply for accreditation with the BOP. A core PGS group shall be accorded accreditation by the BOP only if he has at least 5 members coming from different farms in the municipality city or in the adjacent municipality city of the same province, actually practicing organic agriculture and whose farms have been certified by the BOP or by an OCB. For purposes of this section, the BOP is hereby authorized to certify at most 5 individual farms of a PGS group whose owners or representatives will then compose the core PGS group, provided that one such core PGS group has been subsequently accredited by the BOPS. The authority of the BOPS to certify the farms of the same core PGS group shall cease, provided further that the certification issued by BOPS shall automatically lapse and be deemed revoked when a farmer ceases to be a member of the core PGS group. A national organization of local government units or LGUs actually initiating or engage in organic agriculture, or any private group or organization actually engaged in organic agriculture as direct farm producer, as a promoter, advocate of the ways, methods, and principles of organic agriculture, or as a marketer of organic agriculture produce may also apply for accreditation as an organic certifying body. The BAP shall issue its decision on the application for accreditation by a core PGS group of any qualified entity applying for accreditation within 60 days from the submission of the complete requirement. Failure to render decision within such period shall be deemed an approval of the application for accreditation as an OCB. The BAP shall not charge any application fee. Letter E, organization level. The core PGS group, every core PGS group should have at least 5 members composed of farmers from a combination of both the crops and livestock sectors. It may add to its membership farmers from other sectors in agriculture, non-government organization, people's organization, buyers of organic agriculture products, suppliers of organic inputs, among others, who all live in the same or adjacent municipality or city within the province and regularly interact with each other. Each core PGS group shall have the following duties and responsibilities: develop an understanding of the organic standard, make sure farm practices are compliant, make a pledge that they understand and adhere to the organic standard, conduct inspection and certification activities of member farms in the municipality city or in the adjacent municipality city. As the case may be, at least a majority of the members of the core PGS group who joined in the actual inspection and certification activity shall sign on the truthfulness of the findings of the inspection and certification activity. Recommend which farms will be certified, initiate key field trainings for farmer members and residents in their locality to promote organic agriculture, attend municipal provincial PGS meeting and share information, take actions on default non-compliance as per sanction guidelines to be provided by BAP, organic certifying bodies, and municipality city PGS group. Assist defaulting and non-compliant members to regain certification status. Municipality City PGS Group. The Municipality PGS Group shall be composed of the following: one representative for each core PGS group in the municipality and city, one representative from a regional agricultural state university or college or local private agricultural educational institution, provided there should be at least 2 core PGS groups in the municipality city before a municipality city PGS group can be established. The municipality city PGS group shall conduct its business and affairs based on majority decision of members present after having secured a quorum. The municipality PGS group shall have the following powers, duties, and responsibilities. Together with the BAPs, develop or update and implement the participatory guarantee system as provided in this act. Ensure that compliant farmer members continue to comply with all requirements of applicable Philippine national standards on organic agriculture and relevant regulation. Maintain a registry of core PGS groups operating with its area of jurisdiction, which shall be forwarded to the BAP on year-end from the latter's national database. Together with the organic certifying body involved in the inspection and certification activity, and in coordination with the BAP, issue participatory organic certificates and the PGS guaranteed organic label mark to compliant small farmers, fisher folk, and or their farm association cooperative, and submit regularly to the BAPs a list of certified small farmer fisher folks and or their farm or association or cooperative. In case a municipality PGS group has yet to be established, the BOPs, in coordination with the local government unit concerned, shall assume the power, duties, and responsibilities of this group. Provincial and national PGS group, it shall be the option of the PGS group to form their aggregation at the provincial and national level. They shall receive then financial and technical assistance, support, and guidance of the department in the NOAB and the DA BOP in this regard. The provincial government shall encourage and support the formation and activities of this PGS group in the different provinces, cities, municipalities within their jurisdiction. And promotion, the NOAB shall actively promote, search, and recognize association or group that have been practicing organic agriculture through the PGS in accordance with this act. The NOAB shall ensure that each province in the country has a PGS group. Every PGS group shall conduct training and promote organic agriculture. Training. The Agricultural Training Institute shall, in close coordination with BOPs, make available the required training program on organic agriculture standards and processes for PGS group applying for BOPs accreditation. The BOP shall conduct random inspection to ensure that PGS group are all compliant with the Philippine National Standard on Organic Agriculture. The BOP shall keep a record of compliance for PGS group in the country and shall publish a list of such compliance at least once a year. Incentive. Any small farmer, fisher folk, or their farms, association, cooperatives engaged in organic agriculture, or any organic input producer certified by its core PGS group or any organic certifying body accredited under the section to be compliant for a period of 5 years without any offense or infraction shall be eligible for a full government subsidy of the cost for an international certification for 1 year, provided that they shall export their products further so long as the same entities maintain their status of compliance. They shall be invited and given for free prime location in any government agency initiated or sponsored trade and business marketing gathering of Filipino products for the purpose of displaying and selling their own organic products. I so move to accept, Mr. President. Haba?
Mr. President,
Yes, Senator Pangilinan.
yes, before we move to approve, just a clarification on Section D, Paragraph 2. If I may read the proposed amendment, a farm owner applying for certification as an organic agriculture practitioner shall join a PGS group in the same municipality, city where it is located, or with a PGS group in an adjacent municipality, city within the same province, provided that the farm is contiguous to the farms of the PGS group in the adjacent municipality, city. Just to clarify, does this mean therefore that non-adjacent municipalities within the same province cannot join a PGS? I ask this because, Mr. President, for example, in the province of Cavite, many of the farms in Cavite provide their produce to Tagaytay City. And a number of these farms are located in municipalities that are not adjacent to Tagaytay City. Our farm, just for disclosure, is adjacent to Tagaytay City. So I'm not doing this for the sake of the farm that I run. But for example, in Dang, the municipality of Tansa, the municipality of Maragondon is not adjacent to Tagaytay City. But if they have customers in Tagaytay City, the hotels, the restaurants, the resorts, I would imagine that they would like to form a PGS group among their customers, among those who are supplying these hotels, but they're not adjacent to Tagaytay City. So that would mean they cannot form that PGS group. Perhaps, if I may suggest, we just remove the term adjacent. As long as they're within the same province, the municipality can join, for example, a PGS involving suppliers in Tagaytay City as well as farmers from Maragondon.
So you're saying you want to remove the word adjacent?
Yes, as long as there are municipalities within the same province, they need not be adjacent municipalities within the same province.
All right.
As long as they are,
I move to
yes.
Subject to style, Senator Villar, what is your pleasure?
I move to accept, Mr. President.
Not accepting. All right. Any objection?
Thank you.
So accepted. Any objection to the main amendment that Senator Villar has proposed in its
No,
entirety?
there are still more,
Subject to style.
Mr. President. There's still more.
Yeah, I know. We're not done. We haven't approved the amendment that you proposed, the long one. So any objection to that long one? Subject to style. Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted. All right, you may proceed, Senator Villar.
On page 17, lines 4 and 5, delete the entire section 9 and replace it with the following to read as section 11. Section 13 of Republic Act 1006I is hereby renumbered as section 15. Move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
On the same page, line 7, change section 10 to section 12. And on line 10, change section 15 to section 16. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
Still on the same page, line 21, section 11 to section 13. On line 22, delete the phrase "a new section is inserted" and replace it with the phrase "replace it with a new section 17." Move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
On page 18, line 6, change section 12 to section 14. Move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
On page 19, line 1, change section 13 to section 15. Move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
On the same 19 page, on page line 4, change section 14 to section 16. I so move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
On page 19, line 9, delete the word "NOAP" and replace it with the phrase "agribusiness and marketing assistance service." I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
Lastly, number the succeeding sections of SBN 13. I move.
Any objection?
Other group and coming from Senator Marcos. Okay.
There is an anterior amendment being proposed by Senator Tolentino. So before we do that, because the anterior amendment falls in the declaration of policy, so we would like to recognize Senator Tolentino first before we recognize Senator Marcos.
No, I'm reading the amendment of Senator Marcos.
You will be reading also into the records
Yes,
or
yes.
you will be proposing the amendment of
Senator
Marcos.
Marcos. Yes.
Yes, but this is an anterior amendment by Senator Tolentino. So may we hear the proposed amendment of Senator Tolentino?
Thank you, Mr. President. With the permission of Senator Villar, just a minor amendment that would probably strengthen Republic Act 8371 or the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997 or the IPRA law. Madam Senator Sponsor, gusto ko po lang sana, with your permission, to recognize our 17 million IPs and 134 ethnic groups in the Philippines. I'm referring to the Gadangs of Kalinga and Isabela, the Negritos, the Mangyan, the Talandig of Bukidnon, among others, Mr. President, on line on line 10 of the
Page.
page 1, Mr. President,
All right.
declaration of policy, after the words natural resources, add the following: encourage the participation of indigenous organic farmers and promote their sustainable practices. Mr. President, I so move to have this inclusion.
If you don't mind, you can remove the word "and." So can you read it again?
Yes. Line 10,
Hmm.
prevent the depletion of natural resources, comma,
Hmm.
add, insert, encourage the participation of indigenous organic farmers and promote their sustainable practices. comma.
Promoting their sustainable practices instead of
Promoting.
using the
Correct,
"and."
for editorial
Remove the
purposes.
"and" word.
Of-
Yes.
Correct, Mr. President.
Aye.
Promoting their sustainable practices, comma.
Oh, yes. All right. Any object, Senate, what does the sponsor say?
I move to accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
And one final amendment, if the sponsor would accede, on page 7, after the word organic agriculture, since we now recognize the role of our indigenous farmers, if the sponsor would accede, on line 3, add letter L, one representative from the indigenous organic farmers. Period.
What
If,
does the sponsor say?
Mr. President, let's make a clarification because this is municipality provincial, no? So if there's no IP in that province, we cannot require. So if there is an in that place there is a IP, then we can require. Oo. Because how can we require if there's no IP in that place? If there is an IP in that place, an IP community in that place, maybe we can require.
Um, as suggested by the sponsor, although I think all the IPs would be covered because
No,
almost
there are provinces and municipalities where there are no IPs. How can we require them to include an IP? Maybe we should limit it to those provinces and municipalities where there are IPs. Hindi naman
Perhaps
lahat
what you can
meron
do
eh.
is
add,
add a
if there are any.
qualifying phrase.
Yes, Mr. President. So
Yes,
as we worded,
yes.
Mr. President,
Hmm.
letter L, one representative from the indigenous organic farmers, if there are any in the community.
If any.
If any.
Okay.
If any.
Okay.
Period.
I move to accept the.
Accepted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you,
Hearing
Madam
none,
Sponsor.
objection, adopted.
Okay, we go to the other amendments. On page 12, line 7, after the words municipality city, insert the phrase or within 2 adjacent municipalities. Without any, anything against what Senator Kiko proposed, because there is also a provincial PGS also. So it's not limited to a municipality. It can be a provincial PGS. Okay?
All right.
I so move. So the provision reads accreditation. The BAP shall provide the guidelines for accreditation. A registered core PGS group shall apply for accreditation with the BAP. A core PGS group shall be accorded accreditation by BAP only if it has at least 5 members coming from different farms in the municipality or city or within 2 adjacent municipalities actually practicing organic agriculture. This is for municipal PGS. We have a provincial PGS also. So I move that we accept that. Okay?
What page again and what line?
Letter D,
Page,
page,
what page?
page 12, line 7.
Hmm.
Letter D.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, Mr. President.
Pangilinan.
Yes.
Senator Pangilinan, go ahead.
Yes, may we just have a clarification on the definition of a provincial PGS so that
The whole province, you can qualify if you belong to a province. Kasi may municipality, may city, may province. So if you want to be a province, you can do it. To be the whole province, coming from the whole province, you can do it also.
so even if they're not adjacent, several towns from the
Yeah.
same province
It really
can then
indicated that it's a provincial PTA.
okay.
Municipal, provincial.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you for that clarification.
All right. So, any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On
Copy tayo rito.
page 12, line 18, after the word agriculture, insert the phrase, the BAP shall extend technical and financial support to PGS in its application for accreditation. Move
Huh?
to accept. Mr. President.
Yes. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 12, line 20, delete the letter D and replace it with the letter E. Move to accept.
Hearing no objection, adopted.
On page 12, line 29, after the word city, insert the phrase or within 2 adjacent municipalities. Okay, move to accept.
Again, sorry, we did not hear you well.
On page 12, line 29, after the word city, insert the phrase or within 2 adjacent municipalities. Move to accept. Okay.
Same municipality.
Adjacent municipalities.
Yes, you're
Parang
using.
ang sabi, yung municipality pwedeng adjacent municipalities. Pero kung malalayo sila, then they become provincial PGS group.
Yes, so you are using a word or after city.
Or within 2 adjacent municipalities.
Within, yeah, municipality or city or within. Just style, maybe you will replace
Subject to style, Mr. President.
replace or with comma
Yeah.
after municipality.
Okay.
Anyway, subject to style. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
And page 4, line 23, delete the letter and number D1 and replace it with the letter and number E1. Page 4, line 23, delete the letter and number D1 and replace it with the letter and number E1. Move to accept, Mr. President.
Any objection?
Hirap.
Adopted.
That's all, Mr. President. It's a long amendment.
All right.
Mr. President, parang substitution na yata ng bill yan.
Exactly. Anyway,
Na lang,
what
Mr.
we can do is perhaps direct the secretariat to give us a clean copy.
Yes, Mr. President.
That we may be able to read through it and approve it on second reading tomorrow. Because if we do so, we have enough time to have it on third reading the following week.
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
What I can do is move to close the period of amendments, Mr. President. We move to close the period of individual and committee amendments. I so move, Mr. President.
Sige. Before we act on the motion, Majority Leader, there is a concern being raised by Senator Tolentino. So, Senator Tolentino, you're recognized.
Yes, Mr. President, if I may ask the reconsideration of the chair, I also got confused because we were previously talking with adjacent LGUs. The proposed amendment, my second amendment I mentioned a while ago, has nothing to do with local boards, but it has something to do with the national NOAB, National Organic Agricultural Board. So, Mr. President, the representative coming from the indigenous organic farmers would be coming from would be representing a national group. So the qualifying words, if any, which was earlier adopted, is not applicable because it is not community-based, Mr. President. So I got confused with the indulgence of the good sponsor. So the amendment should have read one representative coming from the indigenous organic farmers without any qualifying words, if any, Mr. President.
So there is a motion for reconsideration,
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator Villar, to remove, if any, in his proposed amendment. What do you say?
As long as, I just want to clarify if he's talking about the national organization.
Correct.
Yes, Madam
Yes, he
Yeah,
is.
you're not talking of the local and the provincial, di ba?
It will not apply.
Oh, so you are just asking for
Chair.
one one
One
representative from the indigenous people. But sana we qualify because there are 5 members lang yata. So we have to
Yes.
clarify that he is qualified to be. Lagyan lang natin ng qualification kasi 5 lang yun eh. Tapos bibigay mo sa kanya tapos hindi naman siya qualified. Medyo unfair. So, as long as he is qualified, diba? Lagyan natin noon. Pwede ba yon?
So as rewarded, letter L, one qualified representative from the indigenous organic farmers. I'm sure they have a roster of this coming from
Yeah.
municipal
As long as
committee.
lang, di ba?
Yes.
Just to make sure,
Oh.
kasi konti lang yun eh. Baka mamaya magka-problem na hindi naman qualified malagay doon. Di ba?
All right.
I
So
agree.
we replace, if any, with qualified before the
Yes.
phrase. All right. After the Article A.
Mr. President.
All right. Is it acceptable, Senator Villar?
Yeah, I accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any
Thank you, Mr.
objection?
President.
Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So we now act on the motion of the majority leader to suspend the period of amendments and ask for a clean copy that we will approve tomorrow. Is that the motion, Senator?
Yes,
Majority
Mr.
Leader?
President. Well, I move to close the period of amendments, but if you want to just suspend, we can.
No, it's okay. I will accept what your motion is.
We
Your
move to
motion
close
is
the period
to
of
close.
amendments. Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, the motion is to close the period of amendments and thereafter ask for a clean copy. Any objection? Hearing none. Period of amendments is closed.
Mr. President, before I suspend the consideration of the measure for tomorrow, I believe several of our colleagues would like to be co-authors of the measure, particularly Senator Joel Villanueva would like to be a co-author, and whoever else wishes to be co-authors of the measure. I would suggest, Mr. President, with the permission, of course, of the sponsor and author, the principal author, Tita Cynthia Villar, if all members can be made co-author of the measure.
So, approve, I so move for approval, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Can we hold on for just a second, just a few seconds? There is a issue being asked. The Secretariat has called my attention to Section 19, line 29, that the IRR is subject to review and approval by the Senate or by the Congress. It's not allowed. There is a jurisprudence to that effect already.
So we remove, Mr. President.
All right, may we open the period of amendments again?
Yes, Mr. President, I move that we resume or open the period of committee amendments to resume amendments, Mr. President.
Motion is approved. May we now ask the Secretariat to, in line with the constitutional and jurisprudence, remove for review and approval on Section 19, line 29. All right, so is that acceptable, Senator Villar?
I move for the approval, Mr. President.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, we move to close once again the period of amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, period of amendments closed.
And with the permission of Senator Villar, we'll just come up with a clean copy. And I commit to approve it on second reading first thing tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, Mr. President.
Right, we direct the Secretariat to produce a clean copy as soon as possible.
With
and
all-
be to the,
with all members as
members
co-author
for
already,
the
Mr.
parts
President.
of the Senate, of the senators.
Thank you,
Shall we-
Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you. Congratulations, ma'am. Congratulations.
Suspend consideration, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I move that we suspend consideration of the measure.
Any objection?
Yes.
Hearing none, consideration of 1318 is hereby suspended.
Mr. President, I move with the permission of the body to transfer from the calendar of ordinary business to special order Senate Bill number 1541 under Committee Report number 87. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none, so transferred.
Mr. President, I move that we consider Senate Bill number 1541 and ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration is in order. Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Senate Bill number 1541, an act amending Section 3 of Republic Act number 7797, otherwise known as an act to lengthen the school calendar from 200 days to not more than 220 class days.
Mr. President, I move that we, Senator Gatchalian is in the floor. Is that correct, Senate President?
Easier.
Yes. I move that we recognize the chairperson
Hello.
of the committee, no other than
Yeah.
distinguished gentleman from Venezuela, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, Mr. President, to sponsor the measure.
Right. To sponsor the measure, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, Chairman of the Committee on Basic Education, is hereby recognized.
Maraming salamat, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, good afternoon to you all. The measure I'm sponsoring today is in substitution of Senate Bills number 1438, 1452, 1457, filed respectively by Senate President Vicente Soto III, Senator Joel Villanueva, and Senator Francis Tolentino. The subject matter of this amendatory legislation is simple, but also quite important in my view, as we seek to provide the national government more flexibility in managing the school calendar amid the unique challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic. Allow me to explain briefly. Section 3 of Republic Act number 7797, passed in 1994, mandates that the Secretary of Education shall set the start of the basic education school year sometime between the first Monday of June and the last day of August. Under the usual circumstances, this 11 to 12-week window provides enough flexibility for the government to adjust the class schedule due to any issue that might arise. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 has put the entire country under the most unusual of circumstances. The proposed opening of 2020 to 2029 school year on August 24 has been opposed by those who fear that the physical opening of our schools may cause a spike in the COVID-19 cases among school-age children. Maraming pong mga magulang ang nangangamba na baka pag pinayagan nilang pumasok sa eskwelahan ang kanilang mga anak, ay hindi malayong mahawa sila ng peligrosong sakit na ito. Kaya marami sa kanila ang nagsasabing mas maigi pang kahit ipagpaliban muna ang pag-aaral ng kanilang mga anak kaysa isakripisyo ang kanilang kalusugan at kaligtasan. As it stands now, Republic Act number 7797 calls on the Secretary of Education to start classes by August 31, 2020, even if the Department of Health or the Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases would recommend delaying the start of classes to protect the health and welfare of our children. The bill I'm sponsoring today amends Section 3 of RA 7797 to empower the President, upon recommendation of the Secretary of Education, to set a different date for the start of the school year. The date of the start of the school year may be changed for the entire Philippines or any part thereof, which is under a state of emergency calamity, or similar occurrence. COVID has massively infected the education sector, making it the fourth among the most impacted sectors in the country. In fact, further moving the school opening beyond August is a decision with even more complicated implications in the education sector, not only on the health and safety of the learners and the parents, but also on the livelihood of private school teachers and the survival of the private school education sector. It is, it is in contemplation of this and similar situations that this bill proposes it be the President himself, upon the recommendation of the Secretary of Education, who shall make this critical decision. The immediate effect of this legislation would be to empower the President, move the start of the school year 2020 to 2021 to September or even later, in the event that public health authorities would recommend the postponement of the school year in order to contain the spread of COVID-19. This way, the government will have free rein to make a science-based decision on the school opening issue. In later years, this law would give the President and the Department of Education sufficient flexibility in adjusting the start of a school year when other emergencies or calamities would so require. Mr. President, mahalaga ang pagpasok sa eskwelahan ng mga bata, pero higit na mahalaga ang kanilang kaligtasan at kalusugan. Kaya bigyan po natin ng pagpapasya ang Pangulo ng Pilipinas at ang kalihim ng edukasyon upang baguhin ang petsa ng pasukan sa panahon ng pandemya habang walang kasiguraduhan sa kaligtasan at kalusugan ng kabataang Pilipino. For these reasons, I join the Senate President and Senators Villanueva and Tolentino in seeking the support of this esteemed chamber for the passage of this legislation. Thank you, Mr. President. Maraming salamat.
Mr. President, we'd like to also recognize our distinguished colleague from Bulacan, Senator Joel Villanueva, to sponsor the measure.
Senator Joel Villanueva is recognized to co-sponsor the measure.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Majority Floor Leader. Distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, it is my honor to co-sponsor Senate Bill number 1541 under Committee Report number 87, introduced by the Senate Committee on Education, Arts and Culture, headed by our seatmate brother, Senator Win Gatchalian. Allow me, Mr. President, on the onset to congratulate our chair for calendaring and immediately acting in this very important measure. This measure is yet another coronavirus response bill, and hence I appeal to our distinguished colleagues that it should be dealt with utmost urgency. It will affect, Mr. President, more than 27 million Filipino learners, 1.2 million teachers and school personnel, and 61,000 public and private schools in the country. You see, distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, school opening is the issue. And it is not just a minor side concern. Sadly, Mr. President, our 25-year-old Republic Act number 7797 has fixed the start of the school year on the first Monday of June, but not later than the last day of August. DepEd has also set the date of the school opening for the coming school year 2020 to 2021 on August 24, based on the National Online Survey. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we are in a precarious situation because of the COVID-19. I sincerely believe that we must allow some flexibility in our laws, but we have no choice but to let hard science and not public opinion surveys or guesses call the shots. No less than the President himself, President Rodrigo Duterte, reacted yesterday about this particular issue. And we support the concerns of the President. For this reason, our original proposal contained in Senate Bill number 1452 seeks to give our DepEd Secretary the flexibility to open the school year 2020-2021 anytime after August based on the assessment and recommendations of the inter-agency task force. However, Mr. President, after participating in the hybrid virtual hearing presided no less than by the chair of the Committee on Basic Education, Senator Win Gatchalian, and knowing how this particular issue has caused divisiveness and anxiety to our people, we agree on the consolidated bill that it must be the president who must have the power to set a different date for the start of the school year nationwide or in specific areas upon the recommendation of the Secretary of Education. Indeed, the COVID-19 pandemic lends urgency into this piece of legislation. Mr. President, this measure will consolidate the efforts of education stakeholders in mitigating damages and surmounting challenges in this crisis. More importantly, this measure will pacify stakeholders and reassure parents who remain wary of sending their kids back to school while the pandemic is still in place. Again, Mr. President, I appeal for the immediate passage of Senate Bill number 1541. Maraming salamat po at pagpalain tayong lahat ng ating Panginoong Diyos.
Mr. President, with the
Majority
permission
Leader.
of, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, with the permission of the authors, principal authors, if I can be made also a co-sponsor and co-author of the measure, and if I may be able to deliver my co-sponsorship speech, Mr. President.
All right, yes, of course.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it is my honor to co-sponsor a timely measure which will impact a very important chunk of our population, our children. This measure seeks to amend Republic Act number 7797, otherwise known as the Act, to lengthen the school calendar from 200 days to more than 220 class days by giving the President, upon the recommendation of the Secretary of Education, the power to set a different date for the start of the school year in the country or parts thereof in an event of a declaration of state of emergency and state of calamity or similar occurrence. Mr. President, I have to state for the record, though, that I filed Senate Bill number 545, which proposes to synchronize the opening of all classes in the country and sets it for any date between the second Monday of August to the second Monday of September at the latest. This would sync up to our school years, which majority of school systems across the globe. Having said that, I am supporting the said committee report because we are in an extraordinary situation that calls for measures immediately responsive to our people's needs. If you may recall, Mr. President, before we went under ECQ, this representative urged the Department of Education to declare an early summer break due to the increased confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the country. I said it before, and I'm saying it again, that we need a proactive stance now more than ever because of these concerns, a very important and vulnerable demographic of our population, our children, this country's future. With thousands of confirmed COVID-19 cases now in the country and more to be expected given the increase in testing, there is a need to give our government the flexibility to postpone the opening of classes at a later date for our children's safety and welfare. With that, Mr. President, I lend my full support for the earnest passage of this measure. Once again, thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, what we could do, Mr. President, presiding officers.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. What we could do, Mr. President, is schedule this again tomorrow for the immediate passage. We can schedule this for further amendments and deliberations tomorrow, and hopefully pass it by tomorrow evening or late afternoon so that we can hopefully pass it on third reading with the permission, of course, of our colleagues.
With the support of our colleagues, we can do that tomorrow. So in the
We
meantime,
have Senator Trilon lang is would like to be
yeah,
recognized.
they can be probably given a chance to study the measure in that case. Yes, thank you.
Mr. President, may we recognize Senator Drilon before we suspend the measure?
Senator Drilon is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the sponsor will yield to a few questions, we can expedite the passage of this measure.
Senator Gatchalian.
Yes, Mr. President. Yes, good Minority Floor.
Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the sponsor, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now, first question. Is this law applicable to both private and public schools?
Yes, Senator Dizon,
Repeat,
applicable to both public and private schools because the EPED is the
and
supervisor
therefore,
of the private schools.
now, does this also apply to schools which were given international status?
Yes, Mr. President. It's DepEd being the general supervisor of all basic education institutions, including international schools. DepEd will have jurisdiction over international schools. Although, good minority floor and Mr. President, let me just um, inform the body, and I was telling Senator Tolentino that schools can actually open this coming June, provided that they will not implement physical schools. In fact, some international schools, I was telling Senator Tolentino, have already opened, but they are using online learning as the platform for their schools.
Yeah, may I suggest that the sponsor takes a second look on so far as schools with international status is concerned, because they have their own special laws. And I do not know the answer. I'm just raising this issue, which the sponsor can probably review whether or not this is applicable to schools given international status, such as international school. Recently, I think the British school was also given that status, and others I may not recall at this point. Just a point of clarification for the record, so that we can be guided accordingly. May we
Yes.
request the sponsor when he comes back tomorrow to give us an answer to this.
Upon the request of the good
No.
minority floor, I will double check the jurisdiction of DepEd over international schools. But as far as my review is concerned, they have jurisdiction, especially of supervisory powers over the schools. But I will report back to the body upon the request of the good minority floor.
Yes. And also consider the fact that we gave them charters under the laws that we passed.
Yes.
Anyway, the next question is, today, what is the present state of the law, Mr. Sponsor?
We sponsored it today, good minority floor. So today is the sponsorship. Hopefully by tomorrow we will receive some clarificatory question in the period of interpretation.
I think he's asking
With-
about the present law. You asking about the present law, Senator, the minority?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
What is the present law?
the present law is supposed to be,
RA 7797.
yeah, the DepEd is supposed to declare June or at the latest, the last week of August.
Correct.
That's how the law is written.
And therefore, the school opening is governed by law.
Yes.
Yes.
I guess the question, the question in my mind is, given the emergency that we have today, without this amendment, can the president reset the school opening on grounds of health emergency?
Mr. President, there is a school of thought that the DepEd is using under the administrative code, Mr. President. The administrative code broadly gives some authority to the Secretary of Education to open the school as she deems fit. However, the RA 7797 came in later than the administrative code, and it's a very specific law
Mhm.
that dictates the school opening from first Monday of June until the last day of August, Mr. President.
If I may add, the reason that some of us filed this law is this bill is because if the DepEd or the president decides to not open the schools by the last week of August, they will be violating the law. 7797. That is the maximum that they can adjust it. August of every year. So it will be a violation. That's the reason we wanted it to be adjusted.
Correct, Mr. President. So that the law will be very clear, and it will give a lot of flexibility to the President and the Secretary of Education, depending on the situation, whether it's a calamity, emergency, but it will be clear in law that they will be given the power to open classes on a later date.
Yeah. May I suggest to the good sponsor that he once more reviews the bill so that the power to adjust the school year should be based on specific circumstances. Example, if there is a pandemic as we experience today, no question the president should be given, and or the DepEd should be given the authority to reset the school year. But it should only be in the presence of these exceptional circumstances should that power be exercised. Otherwise, the schools cannot plan if suddenly the school year is altered. So we recognize the need for some flexibility, but the exercise of that flexibility must be premised on the occurrence of certain events, as in today a pandemic, and I don't know what else should that justify the resetting of the school year. In other words, what we're saying, Mr. President, is that the amendment should not give an absolute grant to change the school year without any premise or basis. That's our submission, Mr. President.
Only in the case of a pandemic or a national emergency.
Correct, Mr. President. And it is spelled out clearly in the law. And this is taken from the proposed law of Senator Villanueva, that the President, upon the recommendation of the Secretary of Education, can move the class opening in a state of emergency or state of calamity or similar occurrence, Mr. President. So meaning without without a declaration of a state of emergency and state of calamity, then the dates prescribed in RA 7797 will stay, Mr. President. So it's a very strict qualifier. In fact, this was taken out of the resolution filed in their Senate permitting teleconference, that only a declaration of a state of emergency and state of calamity and similar occurrences can permit the moving of the class opening, Mr. President, on a later date.
We concur with that suggestion, Mr. President. All we request is that it be clearly defined and specified in the proposed measure.
We take note of that, Mr. President, and we will make sure that it's clearly defined in the law, Mr. President.
So at this point, we have no further questions. Maybe we can review again tomorrow. We promise that by tomorrow we should terminate any interpolation on our part so that we can pass this measure. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Before we recognize Senator Recto, if I may, Senator Recto, may I just propound a couple of questions to Senator Gatchalian? Just following the line of thinking of our dear Minority Floor Leader, is it all right, Mr. Sponsor, if I can ask just a few questions?
Yes, Mr. President. Good, the Majority Floor.
I totally agree with the Minority Floor Leader on points that there are certain schools with charters, international charters, such as International School Manila, British School, even the school of our kids with Senator Angara, that's the Everest Academy. They have international charters. We have to be very specific. I mean, I'm afraid that they may not listen to the direction of the law once we pass it, and still continue to hold classes, of course, invoking that they have their own international charter. And also, the reason I ask this, there are, during a Channel 2, not Channel 2, the Channel 27, yung ANC interview with several private schools, heads of private schools. They basically mentioned that many of their members were going to open classes on June. They're going to open classes on June and not on August. I guess because they're suffering in terms of, lack of payments, no, tuition fees and all that. But we must always put priority on the health of our children. That should be at the utmost priority. So with this measure, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. President, once the president moves the date of opening, there should be obedience of sorts. So they must follow the law in terms of the moving of these dates. Or will they also be allowed to do online classes? For example, my son's school, Xavier School, is going to open on July 22, if I'm not mistaken. But they're going to do online classes. Will online classes still be allowed? If the president says no, we don't open until December, but could schools still operate using online classes, or will it all be canceled to follow the directive of the president? Mr. Sponsor.
President, the latest pronouncement of DepEd is that schools can open, private schools can open this coming June, provided it's limited to online learning or distance learning, meaning they cannot have physical interaction or there's no physical classes. In fact, I have a niece who's studying in the British school. They have already started classes, and but everything is done online. No? So they can they conduct their classes through Zoom. They submit their homeworks through through email, and they do all of their activities through online. And since this is going to be a decision by the president under the law, the scope and the latitude will cover private schools and all schools for that matter in the country. And even though they have their own charter, but since DepEd, and this is in the charter of DepEd, is the general supervisor of all basic education institutions. Uh, in my view, they will have authority to dictate the school opening. But in this case, we even lift it above one notch by giving that decision to the president because of its sensitivity and the magnitude of the calamity or pandemic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I understand the immediate need to pass this because DepEd, when you're talking about public school education, I don't think we are yet equipped to handle online education. Obviously, it has to be face-to-face from the towns and barangays of Bukidnon, the towns and barangays of Bulacan, the towns and barangays of Aurora and other areas in Iloilo and in Davao. Talagang wala pang internet dun. So it will be very difficult for our children to go on online education or online streaming of education. So it's understandable that we can move the classes a bit further for the public school sector. But just to be clarified, because I'm sure many parents will ask me this, I know Senator Gatchalian is not yet a parent, or maybe he is, but he's not telling us. But, Mr. President, we just need to be clarified when they say that when we approve this measure, Mr. President and Mr. Sponsor, will it prevent other schools from opening online? That's because
No,
if the
Mr.
president says no, we don't have any classes until we have a vaccine, and then he maintains that position. What about the schools like your niece? What about like my children who have already scheduled dates for online classes?
No, Mr. President. In fact, what we're authorizing the president to do is to move classes um, a little bit backward, depending on the situation or during in times of calamity and disasters, Mr. President. But the, the Department of Education can open classes provided it's online ahead of August 24. or in this manner ahead of the suggested date. So, Mr. President, it can also happen that different different locations will have different class openings depending on the situation there. Different schools will have different class openings depending on the technology and the methodology that they employ. So to answer your question straight, Mr. President, no, it will not preclude schools from opening, provided that they will only offer online or non-contact methodology, Mr. President. So this only moves the date, but the President and the Secretary of Education can still open classes ahead of a prescribed date, but they will have to put certain conditions and limit the exposure of our students, especially in times of pandemic.
Yeah, so Mr. President, just probably a word of caution. Maybe we could just put a provision of the law to that effect. If it is online education, online classes, that it may be allowed, of course, with the approval of the DepEd. Because there might be schools that they might say that we're in violation of the law. We pass the law, we give the president the right to move the opening of the school calendar, and the president says we open on December, and yet they're going to continue their online classes. They might get worried that they're in violation of the law. So if there are specific provisions of that measure, Mr. President, that would be most welcome, so that at
We'll
least
take note
it
of
will be
that,
clarified.
President, and it's a valid point, so that we also recognize technology as a valuable tool in delivering education in this type of situation, Mr. President.
That's it, Mr. President. I have no further questions. May we recognize Senator Ralph Recto for
The
his.
President Pro Tem, Senator Recto is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Well, I do support the measure, and I just have a few clarifications also, clarificatory questions, similar to the issues raised by Senator Mig Subiri. Would the sponsor answer just a few questions?
Yes, certainly, to our good Senate Pro Tempore.
Thank you very much. When we move the schedule of, first, are we talking about only K to 12? This does not include JED,
Yes,
ED or
we're talking
TESDA?
about, yes, K to 12, Mr. President. This is deals with K to 12, Mr. President.
Okay. And we're moving the school, we're giving the authority to the president to move the school opening nationwide? Or pwede ba yan na in Mindanao, pwede na, in Visayas, in Luzon, lockdown pa, no schooling in Luzon? Is
The
there that
power-
flexibility?
The power is nationwide, Mr. President, but we also indicated that he can open several parts thereof, depending on the situation. So, for example, if there is, let's say, a Marawi type of incident in other parts of the country, they can, the Secretary of Education can suggest the postponement of the opening, and the President will declare the new date of opening, Mr. President. So,
Okay.
depende
So
sa
it could be localized, not
It can be localized.
necessarily.
Yes, correct, Mr. President. Can be
Okay.
localized.
Yes, because I haven't seen the text of the bill, no? Okay.
It can be
And
localized.
that's why, yes, okay. So basically, pwedeng localized lang siya. Okay?
Correct, Mr. President.
Uh, another question, Mr. Sponsor. Is education essential or non-essential?
It's absolutely essential, Mr. President. And
Absolutely essential.
to my view, it's absolutely essential, Mr. President, because in situations like this, inequality might rise or will rise within our society, Mr. President. A case in point is in advanced schools, international schools, private schools, they already started online learning. No? So they started their classes, they can teach ready, but our public school students are left behind. And if we don't come up with a mechanism or we will open schools or we will deliver innovative methodologies to deliver learning in our public school system, then our poor constituents will be left behind. So it is essential, Mr. President.
It is essential. Okay, so it should be treated as essential. Maybe later on we can also adopt that language in the bill.
Yes, Mr. President. I'll
The
take note of that.
importance of opening up the education sector, allowing our children to go to school, di ba?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay. As I said earlier, also when asked by some media, some people in the media, I said that education is essential. And if we can find ways to open restaurants with social distancing, we should be able to do the same for education.
Yes, Mr. President, that's true. And the use of traditional technology can also be employed. For example, radio and TV.
Yes,
As
correct,
you all
correct.
know, radio and TV is the most widely used traditional forms of broadcast. And in many of the franchises of major TV networks, we discussed this with Senate President,
Okay,
is the
okay.
10%
Yes,
allocation for public
correct,
service. So we can tap into
correct,
this, Mr. President.
correct. Okay, I might have further questions tomorrow just in case, Mr. President. For this time, thank you very much,
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you,
President,
Mr. President.
Majority
Mr.
Leader,
President, may we recognize Senator Joel Villanueva.
Senator
just
Villanueva.
to add, thank you, Mr. President, thank you, Majority Leader. Just to add to the concerns raised by the Honorable Senator Drilon, Senator Subiri, and Senator Recto, in the particular measure, it's expressly provided that a declaration of state of emergency, state of calamity, or similar occurrence as basis for moving the start of a school year. And aside from that declaration, it must also be upon the recommendation of the Department of Education Secretary. Another thing that I'd like to add, one last thing, because of the guarantee of academic freedom on institutions of higher learning, just to point out, the argument is that part of academic freedom is determining the date to open schools. Yun po yung sumasaklaw doon sa mga higher education and tech book schools. Maraming salamat po.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, may we recognize Senator Frank Dillon, our Minority Floor Leader.
The Minority Leader, Senator Dillon, is recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Just some additional questions which can be an input to the sponsor. Would this bill include the power of the president to suspend a school year? As we read in the papers today, the president has said we will not open the schools until a vaccine is discovered or is produced. Would such authority be included in the proposed measure, or is this measure simply authorizing the president to set the school year? And we want to clarify this because this is where we are today. The president said last night, no schools until a vaccine is discovered. Now, would this bill, if it becomes law, would that include that power?
Yes, Mr. President, I can only surmise that without a vaccine, the state of emergency cannot be lifted, Mr. President. And if the state of emergency cannot be lifted, then there is a greater risk for students to go into school. Therefore, the president deems it necessary to postpone the school opening, Mr. President. But this law exactly gives the authority to the president to postpone schools in cases of emergency and calamity, Mr. President.
Yeah. I am not raising an issue the merits of the president's decision. What I am asking the good sponsor, if the bill would cover such contingencies that a whole school year could be in effect suspended. It's not only the school opening being reset, but the whole school year being scrapped. All I'm asking, Mr. President, as a matter of policy, is that encompassed in the bill? If so, maybe we can so clearly specify. That's all we're saying, Mr. President.
Yes.
On another point, Mr. President, I heard the sponsor say a couple of times that the DepEd has a general supervision over all schools, and therefore the charters of international schools are deemed included in that power. Mr. President, in law, we have the principle that a general law cannot amend a specific law. And therefore, I would strongly suggest that when the good sponsor reviews again this bill in anticipation of the same being presented again for debates tomorrow, that this question be addressed. In other words, the international schools precisely sought special charters because of their peculiar needs, as in, for example, the international schools, to our understanding, would cater to expats and their families, and or the diplomatic corps, where they could be reassigned, and therefore the international schools are given that flexibility to fix the school year. Anyway, Mr. President, these are thoughts that we have listening to the good sponsor, and we are just requesting that this matter be included in his review of the measure, and so that we can have a substantial discussion debate tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, suggestion and the pointers of the good minority floor is well taken, and we will review the charter of these special schools so that we will understand the dynamics between DepEd and these special schools.
Senator Tolentino is recognized with the permission of the Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, following the line of thinking of the good sponsor, Senator Gatchalian, and from my discussion with him, and to add to the discussion relative to the query of the minority leader, perhaps what the good sponsor is saying is that since these international schools were, although they branch out from other jurisdictions, they form corporations here in the Philippines. Definitely they're subject to Philippine laws. And Mr. President, definitely again, they cannot isolate themselves from local conditions, such as, for instance, if there is a typhoon, they follow the PAGASA advisories, the DepEd advisories. So it kicks into play the general supervisory functions again of the DepEd. But relative to the grading system, modules of instructions, perhaps they follow the academic calendar. They follow the British model, if it is a British school, or if it is the American school or Brent school, they follow another jurisdiction. But in terms of the local situation, Mr. President, I agree with the good sponsor that DepEd indeed has supervisory functions, and probably tomorrow this will be further clarified by the good sponsor. Just an input, Mr. President.
All right, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I move to suspend consideration of the measure, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is suspended.
Thank you. No other matters are to be taken up today. Just a reminder to everyone, tomorrow we'll be discussing the measures taken up today, which is the Organic Agriculture Act, hopefully for second reading, as well as the measure of Senator Gatchalian, which is the opening of the school, or the opening of the school calendar for tomorrow as well for second reading. If there are other measures that our colleagues would like to pursue, they can get in touch with me privately, Mr. President, and we can schedule these. So with that, Mr. President, I move that we suspend session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, May 27, 2020. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the session is suspended until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, May 27, 2020.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. See you.
Bye. Thank you.
Sarap ng buhay. Sarap ng buhay. Ganito tayo palagi, ha?